Welcome to Conscious Conversations. So, this is a reintroduction of this podcast slash videocast that I started as an experiment about 3 years ago, I think it was, when I was in Osaka. Because the community at In Silence, which is the virtual ashram that I built in 2018, people are clamoring for a podcast, either from me or through In Silence within that domain, within those topics and themes, which was originally a place to learn about the marriage of spirituality and technology. So that was in 2018, and since then until the pandemic, until about 2020, I've held workshops and gatherings online and some conversations. So conversations are really the core of what I've been trying to do at In Silence. But as I went through life, and now in 2026, and we are about to end the year, and we find ourselves as a human race in uncertain times of what is happening in the world now, I have better clarity and like a stronger direction and vision for not just In Silence, but the real work behind it and about it and who it's supposed to serve. Now, alongside the In Silence virtual ashram, which was previously called, there's also a new baby that I'm giving birth to, which is called the Future Humans Mentorship Program for Frontier Leaders. And I'm going to talk more about that in the coming days and weeks. But this particular episode right now is going to be the first episode of Conscious Conversations to be released in podcast platforms. So I wanted to be here to introduce and reintroduce myself and In Silence as I go full bodied and we go full blast at these conversations that aim to bring consciousness and awareness and hopefully prepare us as a human race for the incoming 3 to 10 years. And I'm going to talk more about why that number, why that duration, why 3 to 10 years. So for now, I'd like to say hello. I am Jean. I am the founder of In Silence, and I want to share a little bit about my background as a career person. My professional life started in 2000, I think it was 2002, somewhere along those lines, as a contact center agent. So my real professional career started joining what was then an emerging industry called the call center industry, which eventually evolved into the contact center industry, and then later on evolved into the business process outsourcing industry. And at that time, it was a very new space. It was one of the hottest lines of businesses that Fortune 500 companies wanted to get their hands on and wanted to invest in, much like how AI is right now. So I spent 7 years there, grew up professionally, and that's also where my world opened up to global perspectives and global professionals and global training. So I was there for about 7 years until I felt that it was ready for me to move on. And that's also the time around 2011 when I got the call to join yet another emerging industry. At that time in 2011, it was the e-commerce industry built by Silicon Valley startups or companies. So that was my introduction to e-commerce, to software, to Silicon Valley. That was when I started traveling in the US, and then eventually back and forth the US and Asia, different cities in the US. and started to grow even bigger as a leader, leading teams from, globally distributed in the U.S., in Asia, and other parts of the world too. And the biggest team that I managed at that time was about 200 at the time. I spent about 4 years there, and eventually it was time for me to move on. I left that amazing company and was invited to join the software licensing industry, which at that time, in about 2014, I think 2015, wasn't new, but um, it was an elusive role, and it was an elusive space to be able to join, because it was music production, it was licensing for music and film production software, um, at the biggest film and music production software licensing company. And that brought me into an even bigger world of leadership and team management and team building and technology and evolution and growth and scale. And then again, it was time to move on after 3 years. I decided to take a break. I had the privilege to be able to take a break while still able to pay the bills and also go full time on my spiritual studies. So I didn't mention that a few years before that break in 2017, I also started practicing yoga. So years before, 2007, I think, on and off. And then 2011 was when I went full time into becoming a yoga student, which then eventually in 2017, 2018, I decided I'm gonna be certified to teach yoga, because I thought I wanted to teach yoga. So I went to India and spent a month and a half there to become a yoga teacher. But before that, I was following my yoga teachers in different cities in the US and Asia, while leading global teams in technology, and while also building my beautiful family, um, based in the Philippines. So I was still based in Manila at that time, just traveling a lot. And so in 2018, I had the wild, wild, wild honor to complete my yoga teacher training studies and also get deeper into my meditation practice through Vipassana meditation um, immersion. And then right before leaving India, right before heading back to Manila, when I thought I was gonna teach yoga in Manila, I got the call, the figurative and literal call to join an AI startup in Silicon Valley still. And I joined that. And of course, it blew my mind, and it expanded me even more as not just as a leader and not just as a professional, but more importantly as a human being and as a mother and as a student of life and spirituality. And I met even more amazing human beings there, my founders at the company. And I spent about 2 to 3 years there before the pandemic hit and before we moved to Japan. So my family and I, we moved to Japan. We had the honor and the privilege to move to Osaka and start a new life. Now, I've been reflecting on the past almost 2 decades of my career and life and spiritual journey, and how everything coalesces into what and who I am now. And there are specific things that remain the same, that brought me the opportunities and that allowed me to flow from one adventure to another and one transition to another. Because coming from, even before the contact center job, I was a dropout in university and I came from poverty. So from poverty to drop out of university to contact center industry, which brought me to IBM, to the global stage of IBM. into e-commerce, into Silicon Valley, into software licensing, into an even bigger perspective and experience in the globe, in the world, in life, and then eventually into AI, and then in Japan, and then to now in this 2026 threshold in human race. So I'm speaking and thinking now as a tiny speck in the universe, as a tiny human being in the grand scheme of things. All of those things that I experienced are part and parcel of what I need to bring out to the world now. And through that journey, In Silence was born in 2018 also. But in 2018, In Silence was called a different thing. It went through a couple of evolutions. But even as I settled on In Silence, the name and the vision, which was originally to bring together spirituality and technology to help humans upgrade their internal OS, the guidance from spirit, from my intuition, was always to take my time and not rush. There was no need to rush. Things will unfold and form as they are meant and at the time that they are meant to unravel. So I've always held a day job. I've always had many other consultation work and even some other side gigs, but In Silence remained to be my sole purpose. And then in 2023, I received the guidance to bring science into In Silence, which was mind-boggling to me because I had zero knowledge, contact, experience in science. But again, as I trusted my intuition, because there was no other way to do it, I surrendered and gave it up to the universe. So fast forward to now, 2026, I now have the scientific angle to it and the amazing people from the science and the research and the academic spaces who have been helping, supporting me bring science into In Silence and into my life and into my own little projects and adventures and interests. So now In Silence is going through its current transition, and I would say this transition is going to be good for 3 to 8 years from now. But at the same time, there's another seed that formed when I moved to Kyoto. From Osaka, the family moved to Kyoto. Another seed was embedded into my orbit in 2024. We just arrived in Kyoto. This vision and this energy and this consciousness called future humans came through me and made itself known that it wants to be birthed into Earth through me. I was also new in the lab, in the scientific lab that I joined, and so I quietly, continued the work, a little bit of the work In Silence, kept the relationships and the conversations, while also kind of conceptualizing what future humans is and what it will become and who it's for, while studying science. The likes of cognitive science, neuroscience, artificial life, the science of AI, and so on and so forth. The theory of everything, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, plasma, and a few other things. So now, this reintroduction and this new version of the podcast that will unfold and unravel in the coming days it's now that supplementary and symbiotic mission of In Silence, the educational hub that aims to bring spirituality, science, and technology together to help usher in a new version of humanity so we can be better stewards of the earth, technology, and our bodies and our relationships so we can love, live, work, serve better. And the Future Humans Mentorship Program, which is mainly here to serve leaders for the new frontier. And so now I leave you with that, and I want to thank you, those who have joined In Silence since 2018, and who have stayed, who have come and gone, the team members, the advisors, community members, everybody who have joined In Silence, who have left, and who have remained, and who have recently joined. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now we're here. I'm so excited to bring forth um, the more coherent, the stronger, the more precise, and the more loving and crazier, I will say, the crazier and the wilder version of In Silence, and this future humans leadership program or mentorship program that will come out soon. Thank you, everybody, and I look forward to hearing about your feedback and receiving your thoughts and insights about everything that I'm doing and everything that I'm also doing with the amazing people that you are going to meet soon. So for now, thank you, stay conscious, and see you again soon.